Welcome to Law Talk Today, a series devoted to bringing you informative and educational programs focused on issues of law, government, and community.
Good evening. Welcome to Law Talk. My name is Chris Colabella. Tonight I'm going to be your host. On Law Talk today, we try to discuss issues which are of particular interest to the public. It's legal issues. Of course, tonight we're going to discuss entertainment law. We have two very special guests, Dan Agatino and Gary Laurie, and they're both entertainment lawyers. And they're going to help us go through what it would take for a young budding artist to get his legal affairs in order and hopefully reach the goal of great success in the entertainment industry. So welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
I wanted to present for the public a little path from the guy who has some musical talent and maybe has written some songs and would like to maybe copyright them and present them to Sony Music. I don't really know exactly how it works, but let's start out with a hypothetical. Could we work with that?
Sure.
Yeah. So we have a guy, we'll call him John, and John is a great guitarist, and John's been writing music for 10 years, and he's got a band. And John wants to bring his music public. He's been playing at local bars, and he's worked out handshake deals with people at the bars for, you know, a percentage of the, say, the liquor tab or whatever. So John comes to your office and he says, here I am, I have 27 songs, they're original songs, and I want to present them to a Sony Music or to some record label. What do you do?
Well, the first thing that I would ask is I would ensure that he has protected himself adequately with the copyrights of the songs, as well as dealing with band issues that might come up. For instance, are these just his songs? Are they written and owned by himself and the full band, or just part of the band? So the first thing I would do would be to get all of our ducks in a row and make sure that everything is protected appropriately.
Okay, when you say copyright, what's involved in that process?
There's a simple form that you could file at the United States Copyright Office's website, and you basically deposit a copy of your music with them, generally a CD, but it can be electronic as well. And it's a $35 registration fee, and you fill out the form saying who owns it, who was involved in producing it, and you file the form and the deposit copy with the Copyright Office, and that's about it.
Now, Dan, let me direct this at you. Say that we're interested in copyrighting the music. What about art? Say that they have a name and a logo or something like that. Does that fall under the same? Is that the same thing?
Well, you certainly can copyright animation or a drawing. You can also trademark in certain instances if it's a logo that's associated with a band, but that would be separate from the actual music. So you have different copyrights. There would be a copyright of a performance of a song. There would be a copyright of the actual musical notes, and you can't just have one copyright cover everything. You want to make sure that you have everything done correctly so that your intellectual property is protected.
Okay, so the first order of business is let's protect the work before we expose it to the public. Because I'm assuming if you sent it out to a record company and it wasn't protected, what could happen?
They could potentially use either the lyrics or the music, whether it's the full song or a part of it. However, copyright law now states that your music and your art is copyrighted upon creation. So all you're doing with the Copyright Office is registering it, but you're protected from its inception.
So if somebody created some music and they sent it out there and somebody tried to steal it, they actually have some protection just based on the state of the law without actually filing the copyright?
Absolutely. One of the big advantages of filing for the registration is the ability to sue and the ability to seek certain types of damages or remedies when you do go to court.
Well, how long would something like that last? I mean, say that somebody comes to you and doesn't really do anything with it for 10 years. Is it still good?
Absolutely. From the date of the registration, you have the protection for the life of the author, however long that may be, plus 70 years after that.
Okay. So John's in your office, and John is kind of a hyper guy, and you could tell that he's really just a very, very well-trained musical talent, and not very smart when it comes to those practical things like contracts and just basic negotiations. Is it a different kind of relationship that you have with somebody in that situation than you would if you were just sort of negotiating a contract with a sophisticated business person?
Oh, absolutely. I think you have to be more on guard and look out for their interests to an even higher degree than we would normally with a sophisticated business person. If somebody doesn't have the basic background information as to even what a contract is, the level of representation inherently goes up.
Right.
And I would add that when you have somebody who comes in and they're a hyper client and they're not really, they're an artistic talent, but they don't have the skill that is necessary to do all the legal work, that they have to be guided as to, there's a whole host of things that can be done, what should be done, or what would they choose from these options, because they could go on and on with intellectual property protections and copyrights and trademarks and marketing, and there's all sorts of things that we have to help them say, this is important, this is less important.
You know, it's interesting when you think of an artist. It could be anything, right? Not only music. It could be a video, a music video, like you were saying before. It could be artwork. It could be somebody who's a dancer. I mean,
Absolutely.
a
Choreography is
choreography. So, I mean, there's just a whole. What other areas would it cover? I mean,
Video games are huge.
Video games.
Video games are outpacing movies these days, and so if somebody creates the code and new characters in this whole fantasy realm, or if it's something where they're off fighting in a war, that's protectable.
So in any situation when somebody comes in like that, you would have to, I guess, explore what it is that you're trying to protect, because it sounds like somebody comes in and they're a musician. Boy, there's a lot more than just the music.
Absolutely.
All right, so here we are, and he presents this. John presents this stuff to you. He's got a couple of discs, and he says, "I want you to, shop this for me." Is that the kind of thing that an entertainment lawyer does, or is there somebody else that's involved in that process?
Absolutely, an entertainment lawyer could certainly do that. That is also something that a manager would do. But as an attorney, you bring certain skills to the table that a manager might not necessarily have. So sometimes it's musicians, filmmakers, other artists prefer to have an attorney so that they can handle both the legal side of it and the shopping around and trying to make them big.
Okay, so when they come in to your office, you assess, what kind of help they need. We get the copyright in order, and I'm assuming that you'd have to get a retainer of some sort, right? I'm assuming you get paid for what you do, right?
Absolutely.
So Dan, if I came into your office, you'd assess what I would do. You and I would actually, if I'm Johnny, would actually have to enter some kind of an agreement for your services. Is that correct?
Absolutely, and the agreement would put forth what it is that I'm doing, some of the things that I cannot do. So, for example, you had said in your hypothetical, Johnny goes, plays at the bar, he gets a take from the bar, and I'm not going to be calling up bars for Johnny and say, hey, you want to take my client?
Right. All right. So you define that relationship. Do you usually get paid up front, or is it a contingency where you get paid a percentage of what you make? Is it based on your success in shopping them? How does that work? How does an entertainment lawyer get paid?
I think that there are different options. You could speak to how you prefer to do business.
Sure.
A flat retainer is an option. An hourly retainer is another option. If you do percentages, there are issues that come into play, but that is possible. But then the actual entertainment law work morphs into entertainment law / management work.
Okay.
Or it could.
So, and you had mentioned, Gary, that you could actually shop music for an artist.
Absolutely, as long as you have an agent's license, at least in New Jersey and New York.
Okay, so you have to have a separate designation to do that.
Yes, you have to be licensed and bonded.
Okay, so what would the first step be? You have the stuff that Johnny brings into your office. What do? Do you take it? You mail it out? You start calling people? How do you make the connections?
I listen to it.
Okay,
over and over
that
again.
That makes sense, right?
The first thing.
Okay.
If I don't feel a connection, it's hard to present it to somebody and make them feel the connection and
Right.
want to promote it and produce it.
Right.
So first thing I do is listen to it. If it doesn't do it for me, I say thank you, but no thank you. But if it is well done, what you brought to the table before when you said maybe we'll go to Sony or something like that. These days, that's what every musician comes in and says. I want a major label deal. I want to be with Sony. I want to be with Universal. And I tell them to get that out of their heads pretty much right away. These days, the major labels aren't signing as many new artists. Even if they do, the advances are not what they used to be. And with the advent of social media, all of the marketing and promotional work that a larger firm would do, you could now do yourself with a fairly small team.
Right. When you say social media, you mean like do something on YouTube, like a music video or something?
Absolutely, that's a perfect example. You could create your own video, post it on YouTube, start a Facebook page, start a Twitter account, and start just talking up your music.
Which is important, I think, because it's free. And so what's going to happen when Johnny comes in, he's got this 27 songs, and he just got paid because he got a take of the bar yesterday. He's got some money that has to be put into his career. And you could spend it very quickly. You could just go on attorneys, on other musicians doing backup, on studio time. So if you could do free Facebook, free YouTube, free social media, burn some discs on your home computer and sell them, there are rules about that, but it's a really good way to get out there. And once you get a fan base, then maybe the larger companies will start thinking about you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know I actually came across an article in the entertainment section of the Ledger where they had an artist who was actually discovered, a young kid who was discovered by Ellen DeGeneres, of all people. And she took this young man, and he's a piano player, and she promoted him. And I guess when you have the connections that Ellen has, and I'm saying that because she was on American Idol, and you guys obviously realize that. There was some other artists, and was Justin Bieber also discovered on YouTube?
YouTube, that's
correct.
Right. So I guess for somebody coming in, you would give them that advice to get your name out there, to play at clubs, to get into putting together some YouTube videos and whatever other social media is available to them
Absolutely.
for free.
Start a website also.
Start a
You
website.
could sell your CDs if you've done some homemade tracks. You could sell CDs, you could sell T-shirts, other merchandise like that. And honestly, most of the money in the music business today is in merchandise and touring. So that's those are the two areas.
So they need to be prepared to go on the road.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, so they get involved in this social media. They get their name out there, and sure enough, they get a call from Simon Cowell. They get a call from somebody big, or you get the call. What happens? I mean, what do? You tell them, hey, good news, we got the call. I need you to be in New York this day and that time to meet so-and-so. Is that how it works?
Yes, it depends on who's calling you, what organization you're working with, but generally they would have you come in and either perform live or listen to some of the tracks with the artist and their representative there and discuss potential options.
Right. Interesting. So at this meeting, I mean, would you be speaking to their legal department, or do you actually speak to the person who's making the decision, the buyer, or whatever they call them, the producer?
It's actually an A&R rep,
A&R.
artists and repertoire.
Okay.
And those are the first people you usually talk to, the people who make the creative decisions as to which artists they are going to sign. And then the legal work comes later on.
Okay. So when you go and you meet with these people, they say, Johnny, just keep your mouth shut. I'm going to do all the talking. Or do you let Johnny just kind of, this is who I am, this is my personality, let them see what they're getting?
I'll answer that to say that they may as well know Johnny's quirks and idiosyncrasies right now. So let him talk.
Right.
He's not going to talk himself out of a deal if he's a great musician.
Right.
If I'm there to watch and say, all right, enough, or to kick under the table or whatever it is, but let them know. Because if you put on a facade and say, oh yeah, no, Johnny's a quiet guy who's going to be to work on time and he doesn't have any baggage, and then suddenly they find out, it actually could be a misrepresentation. So go ahead and let them talk.
Well, I guess if you got over the threshold, they actually want to see you. So
Right.
they're interested in the music.
Absolutely.
They're interested in, they've seen him. It's not like, I guess, back in the 50s, they would hear something and they would say, who is that guy? And there's no way of looking at him. And they'd have to call him in and they'd meet him. And, I'm sure there were artists that they kept in the closet and pulled them out to just make music, And
Yeah, it's called radio face.
Radio.
Exactly.
Well, I'm sure that's happened. In fact, I've heard of stories like that. So here we are. We have just for argument's sake, Sony Records is now interested in Johnny, and you guys come up with a name, and they're about to really go big. Does Johnny need any other help? Does he need an agent? Does he need a publicist? Does he need a team? I mean, if he does, what would that team consist of?
He would definitely need a manager if the attorney is not acting as a manager. Manager generally book gigs, employment opportunities, arrange for product endorsements, arrange for any other forms of employment that would come his way. And the attorney, as long as they're not acting as a manager, would generally just do the legal work there.
Mm-hmm. So, if say Ford Motor Company comes to him and says, we want to use your song, this song about hot rods, in our next string of commercials.
Mm-hmm.
You would put together a contract for that, or they'd send you a contract, Ford Motor Company? How would that work?
Well, I would prefer to draft it myself,
Right.
but most likely you'll get a form contract from Ford. And then my job would be to redline it, which is essentially taking what they've given me and crossing things out, adding other terms to make it more beneficial for our client.
Okay. Now, you brought up an interesting point before, Dan. You have a band, right? And you had mentioned this too, Gary, that you may need some separate representation for the band. I mean, say that Johnny is the star, and he's got all of these other guys in his band. He's got a bass guitarist, he's got a lead guitarist, a drummer, a pianist, he's got some vocals, some singers, and these people are kind of riding his coattails. Is there a point in time where you say to Johnny, listen, we need to get these people attorneys? Or is it something that you just kind of try to represent them and keep the cattle in the corral, so to speak? I mean,
Well, it depends on how far Johnny got prior to coming to me. Let's say the band formed a limited liability company or some sort of corporate entity, then you, as the attorney, would be acting as a representative of the company itself, not necessarily the individual members. So if they were all members of that, let's say LLC, for instance, then there would be no problem. What generally happens, though, is that there is no partnership or limited liability company or anything in place. And then I definitely do recommend that everybody has their own attorney. Mm-hmm. 9 times out of 10, you're dealing with musicians who are not making a lot of money, and they generally will not find their own attorneys, in which case there are certain waivers that we would include in our representation agreements to make sure that they know that they should be getting an attorney and that we told them so.
And so the audience knows a
What's
waiver.
a waiver? Yeah,
it would mean that the band members know that a legal expert, an attorney, is saying this is against our advice. You should be having your own representation. Because the most simple explanation, by way of example, is if 2 people are caught committing a crime, they can't have the same lawyer because their interests might be divergent.
Like
they
a
might want to blame
conflict.
each other.
They're
There's a conflict.
conflicting.
Yeah.
Right, gotcha.
So in a band, if Johnny's making the music, but the drummer's like, you know what, he wrote the notes, but I played the beat, and I want a piece of the copyright. You can't represent both of them when they're fighting.
Right.
So waivers would be these legal documents that allow for you to represent all the band members and tell them there may be times where there's conflict, and you're acknowledging that I've warned you about this.
okay. Just put that aside for a second. You mentioned setting up an LLC. Is that something that an organization creating music, a band, is that something they should do? And if so, why? Why would you do that?
Well, the biggest reason to do that, and I would definitely recommend it, is to protect yourself from any liability. Let's say you're playing at a club and somebody gets hurt. Mm-hmm. That injured person is going to probably try to sue not only the venue, but also the band playing.
Right.
With a limited liability company or a corporation, any of your personal property, your personal car, your house, would be protected from that, and only band property, the corporate property, would be up for grabs.
I see. So that makes sense. I mean, right out of this chute, they should probably set up this LLC. It creates kind of a barrier to their personal assets.
Absolutely.
Especially
Well,
if they had some assets.
That's good if you do have assets. The downside to all of that, of course, is that you've heard bands get together and they break up,
Yes.
and Johnny leaves this band and goes to another. They get a new
Right.
lead singer, and this one gets married. Whatever happens, and if they're part of an LLC, then it gets to be a little bit more of a quagmire than if they're just playing in the garage and this one leaves and a new one comes, because then they're leaving with their interest in the LLC.
So it's a fine line. You have to figure out who's committed, who's not committed, and I mean, who's putting up the money, I guess, right?
Absolutely.
Not only that, but some major stars had the foresight to say, this is me, and the backup work for me as work for hire.
Right.
So you can actually have your own corporation and then just hire out others and still have that protection, but also then keep it so that you can hire and fire at will. You don't have to keep the same basis. You don't have to keep the same
It's
guitars.
interesting you say that because you see bands out there, for example, like Bruce Springsteen, right? There's some big names behind him, like Clarence Clemens, and there was some big names. But Bruce was the guy, and Bruce was the guy getting the cash. You had John Bon Jovi, who's got some big names behind him. But it's my understanding that John Bon Jovi, he's the show. He's who people want to see.
I believe if you read the back of Bon Jovi's CDs, there'll always be a little note that says, special thanks to the Minutemen. Well, who's the Minutemen? It's Richie Sambora and the others who are behind him,
Right.
because it's all Bon Jovi's. He's got the copyright, he's got the,
Right.
and the same thing happened with Kiss. There's one guy who's making the money, and the others are hired help.
Gene Simmons?
Yeah, it
that
is.
the guy?
Yep.
Yeah.
And he was a great businessman.
It's
because of
interesting.
it.
So you form like a little corporation or an LLC, and you're the show, right? And all of these people become employees essentially. So maybe, and I'm thinking out loud, you need to, like you said, Dan, establish that right at the beginning. That listen, I'm the CEO. Okay, you guys work for me. But most band members, wouldn't they be a little offended by that? I mean, isn't that a little? Aren't they? Some of these guys they kind of have big egos, and the lead guitarist thinks he's the show, and the lead singer thinks he's the show.
See, that's why you do what you said, but you don't use the words that you used. You find another way to communicate.
Do it tactfully.
Yeah, no, you just say, I've formed the corporation, and we're going to work on this together, but everything's going to be in my name, so I'll be responsible for all of the bookings, and I'll have the insurance, and you make it like it's a positive instead of a negative. Instead of you're working for me, it's,
Right.
look at the benefits here.
At what point does a band that, they started in the garage when they were teenagers, and now they're out of school and they're playing at the local clubs, and at what point do you really need to form a corporation and get insurance and do all of that stuff?
I think the point that the band members determine that they're really serious about this, that this is going to be their full-time occupation, and it's not going to be something they do on weekends.
Right. So if you're, sort of dabbling in it, probably not necessary to really spend the money. I'm assuming it's probably very expensive to get the insurances and to form an LLC or to some kind of a corporation.
It all adds up.
It all adds up to hire a lawyer and all that stuff. So you're thinking that, you're saying to the public that if you are serious, and this is going to be your full-time vocation, and you're going to go out there and play clubs, get your name known, get out on YouTube, all the social media, you really should put the protections in place up front.
Absolutely. It's better to take care of all of those issues before, especially with the band members, when there's no money on the table. Because once there's money on the table, then you start having issues and squabbles between the band members if these issues aren't taken care of.
Money makes people funny, right?
Money makes people funny.
Yeah.
You know what? That'd be a great line in a song.
That would be a great line in a song. So it sounds like, and I just want to just kind of go back to the beginning. I'm Johnny, I'm interested, I'm committed, I want to do this, I got a bunch of band members. It sounds like I should really go to a lawyer, form an LLC, get my stuff copyrighted, get everything protected, go out there and make my mark by getting onto social media sites, create a website, get on YouTube, and could it be as simple as just being in your house and a video camera and you playing the guitar or singing? I mean,
That's Justin Bieber.
That's Justin Bieber.
He recorded covers of songs, put them on YouTube, and now he's Justin Bieber.
Right.
That was it.
That was it, just like that.
Yeah.
And then when you go to a lawyer, what do you look for? We got to that point. You're at the lawyer's office. What are you looking for in a lawyer? Is there any particular? I know you guys are entertainment lawyers, but is there anybody in particular, like somebody with connections? I would think. I don't know.
Well, two things. One, you want to make sure that the attorney that is working with you has experience in the entertainment field. And the connections are not as important as the knowledge of the industry. Because if somebody says, oh yeah, I could handle it, and say, well, what kind of practice? Well, normally I do real estate, but I'm going to help you. Probably not a good idea.
Right. So, okay. So it seems to me experience is critical. Maybe get a recommendation from somebody that has gone down the path before. So we're at that point. We've covered all the way up to the point where we've got through the copyrights and we've presented to a record company and we got somebody interested, we at that point have to make appearances, I'm assuming, with the lawyer at the studio to do some recording. Is that usually what happens? They want you to record in their studio. I'm assuming they don't take your stuff and that's what they start selling to the public, right?
Generally, they don't. There are always exceptions to that, so sometimes that does happen. But you're right. Generally, they'll book some studio time in one of their studios that they use, and you as the artist would go out there with your band and re-record the tracks that you had previously sent them. Your lawyer's usually not there for those sessions, although they can be. There's no requirement.
Right. All right. So I mean, that kind of takes us all the way through to that point. Obviously, superstardom requires teams of lawyers. Is that right, or does it make a difference? If, like you were saying, a lot of the money is made in merchandising. Mm-hmm. Would you get a separate lawyer for merchandising?
I don't believe so. Entertainment law is a larger name for certain areas of law. Intellectual property is a big one. Copyrights, trademarks, contracts, business law, all of those things as an entertainment lawyer you deal with regularly. And those same issues would be involved in dealing with the merchandise as they would with touring and recording.
Yeah. And this stuff is really fascinating because, you see these guys like on American Idol, that British gal who was on American Idol in Britain and just became famous, and she's really a quirky woman, beautiful voice. Very interesting how they go from rags to riches, and to get from rags to riches, they really need legal help. And you guys have given us some great ideas. Dan, in the last minute here, could you just give us your best piece of advice for somebody who's getting started?
I think that the enthusiasm that gets people into this industry is easy to quash, and they need to keep it, despite the fact that they're now getting involved with the actual, the rote exercise of writing out a contract, of making tough decisions. You still have to keep that passion as an artist, and it's our job to take care of that. So let us do what we do best, go make music, do what you do best, and don't get discouraged by well, as you said, it's a big industry. Yeah. It's a lot of work, but the protections are really there so that what you're doing now benefits you 10 years from now instead of you looking back saying, I wish I saw that lawyer.
Gary, some last minute advice?
Two quick things. One, be confident. Keep your confidence, just like Dan said. And the other is don't sign anything that you don't understand.
Okay. Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate you coming on the show. Fascinating area. I could probably ask you questions all night long, but I can't. Time is limited. Just want to thank everybody out there for viewing Law Talk today. We are grateful for the viewing audience, and we hope that this show was helpful to you. Good night.